Welcome to Career Choices, where you'll learn about different professions and make informed decisions on your career choices. I'm your host, Elizabeth Gia. If you're looking for a job, a human resources specialist or HR specialist is often the first person you'd get in touch with. Actually, recruitment is only one of many tasks that an HR specialist is responsible for. Depending on the size of the company, an HR specialist may need to handle a wide range of duties. Our guest, Allison Schafer, has been an HR specialist for nonprofit organizations. She has helped grow a startup nonprofit organization from 7 to 48 employees. And on top of recruitment, Ms. Schafer is also responsible for coaching, employee benefits, and performance management, just to name a few. So let's meet Ms. Schafer to discuss her career as an HR specialist for nonprofit organizations. Hi, Ms. Schafer.
Hi.
So tell me why or how got you into being an HR specialist?
Yeah, I hadn't heard about I was not familiar with that field at all. I come from a background of working directly with youth at nonprofit organizations. And about 4 years ago, I was working with an organization, and they were going through a big growth phase. So they were bringing in a lot of HR support. And so, they kept saying, HR this, HR that. And I thought, what is this HR thing? What is all this about? So, I went online and started reading about HR, and I thought, I had never worked at an organization with human resources before, but to me, it made so much sense about how HR can support the entire life cycle of an employee from, hiring the people that are the best fit for your organization and have the skills that you need, and providing really good training and really good management, really good feedback, growing them through your company, and can just help your organization be so much more successful. And when you're a nonprofit organization and your whole goal is to, serve youth or help the elderly or whatever your mission is, the more efficiently you run, the better you can serve others. So it's really important to have very strong human resources infrastructure in place.
So it looks or sounds like it's a lot of trying to determine and matching the skill set, what the organization needs, and the types of people that may fit.
Yeah, it's a lot about figuring out what's going on with the organization, what's going well, what's not going well. Sometimes on the front end, as you're hiring staff, sometimes once staff are already with your organization, there's management issues, or maybe there's skills development issues. Employees need more training, more coaching, more education. So it's really about kind of having eyes everywhere and making sure that things are running smoothly. And when they're not, asking the right questions to figure out why and how you can improve things.
So you mentioned training. What types of training did you get to become an HR specialist?
Yeah, there was a university near my home where I was living at the time, and they had a human resources management certificate program. So I took the entire program. It included classes on employee relations, legal issues, benefits, compensation, ethics, performance management, staffing. So really from one side to the other.
And when you did this type of training, were there any other types of requirements, like apprenticeships or shadowing someone?
Yeah, there weren't as part of the program, but I was lucky that I was able to start working with this startup organization at first as a volunteer, and get some experience on the ground with an organization that at first was very small. So, that was creating a lot of job descriptions and employee manuals and company policies and procedures. And then by the time I left there a couple years later, we had grown to be almost 50 employees. So much different needs there in terms of developing our employee benefits program and helping kind of develop our management structure, providing coaching, that type of thing.
So when you're growing or hiring, is it like some of the things that most people think of when it comes to HR? You are like the gateway, the first step to being hired for this organization.
Yeah, and it definitely will vary from organization to organization or company to company, but oftentimes at a company, the HR person will be the first person who you have to get through. I think of it as by the time someone passes me to a manager, they have to be a strong candidate because I don't want to waste my manager's time. I need to let them focus on their work, and by the time I say, hey, you need to spend time with this person, I better be pretty sure that it's going to be worth their time, even if that means it's not ultimately the right fit.
I see. And when you do, I guess, vet this person initially, what are you doing? Are you reviewing their resume? Do you do your own research? What is the process?
Yeah, so the resume is always where I start, looking to see if they meet the minimum qualifications for the job. Are they remotely in the ballpark? The next thing I look at is the cover letter. And the most important thing to me is whether this person really wants to work at our company and take this job. You'd be surprised at how many cover letters are very generic, don't say anything about the company, don't say anything about the job. And I think, well, I know this person wants a job, but I don't know if they want this job. So for me, it always stands out when people clearly say, I've done my research, I know what your company does, I know what this job does, and I'm the best person for that. So that's where I start.
Okay. And then once that person, say, is hired, what kind of relationship do you have with the employees?
Yeah, so I support our managers in figuring out how to onboard that employee. So that's developing, the training process, whether or not they're going to have a peer mentor, what the organizational structure is going to look like, how much management, how much time they need to spend with that manager in the early stages of employment. And after that, I do a lot of kind of checking in with our employees, kind of a temperature check. How are things going? Anything I need to be aware of? Anything, I can know that I should know to help make your experience here better. And then from there, kind of throughout the duration of their employment, when they leave our company, I sit down and do what's called an exit interview to try to learn more about their experiences with our company, to see, are there lessons we can learn here to grow stronger as an organization, to do better by our next employees coming in.
That exit interview, is it pretty useful, or do people go into it ready to give you some, I guess, honest feedback?
Yeah, it's very interesting experience. I would say that regardless of where some people come into it, they're leaving the company on a very good note. Sometimes they're, depending on what company and what place you're talking about, they're more frustrated by the time they leave. No matter what, I feel like there are always lessons that can be learned there. Whether it's, hey, we had some miscommunications early on, or maybe we really didn't have the right job description in place, and this person was being asked to do things that weren't in their skill set, and we knew what their skill set was, so where was the mismatch? And sometimes it's been a great, 5 years with the employee, and it's just, we're learning that they needed professional growth that we couldn't get at this particular company. Or maybe they could have, but, we didn't communicate with them well enough. So I think there are always lessons that can be learned.
Okay, sounds like a pretty good position for those who like to interact a lot with people.
Definitely. For me, it matches two of my biggest interests, which is working with people and understanding the laws. So I get to do a little bit of both and make the laws work for our employees and also work for our management.
So what other skill sets you think would help if you want to become an HR specialist?
Yeah, I think the ability to be objective and kind of step back from a situation is really important, because at times employees will come to you, or managers will come to you, and people will be very upset. So you need to be able to take a step back and ask questions and also be understanding. People never really want to hear that they're wrong, but oftentimes somebody is wrong, or sometimes it was just a miscommunication. So it's helping them step back from the situation and be able to see things from a different angle.
So then it sounds like you got to your position through first, I guess, shadowing or interning. So how do people get to your position or in your field usually? Is it through a pipeline from getting a certification and then moving forward, or how does it work?
Yeah, the HR field is interesting in that it's very leveled. So typically it would look like an HR assistant, which would be more administrative help, HR coordinator, which would be a slightly higher level, HR generalist, where you're helping with all kinds of things. Then you get to the specialist level, the director level. So you really could come in at the HR assistant level with no previous experience, or maybe some other administrative experience, and kind of go from there and just make sure that you're taking on new projects whenever you have the opportunity to, and constantly learning.
So someone who does come into your field, beginner level or mid-level, compensation for themselves, what's it like in terms of this job?
Yeah, it will really come down to your exact responsibilities. So how many people are you managing? How big is the company? Are you just doing benefits and payroll, or are you wearing all of the hats under the sun? So it can really run the full spectrum.
Okay. Yes, and I would imagine with benefits and payroll, when the laws change or get modified, that's sometimes more time consuming for you to look into or know the new adjustments.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time making sure that I'm following what's happening at each state level and nationally. So that can definitely be challenging. Each state does things a little bit differently. Some states follow the federal laws a lot more closely. Some states like California, New York, DC, they tend to have a lot of laws that are more strict than the federal laws, and whichever one is more favorable to the employee is the one that takes effect. So in those states in particular, you have to spend a lot of time following what's happening at the state level.
So a lot of details.
A lot of details, definitely. Balancing a lot of things at once.
Okay. So you mentioned you work for a nonprofit organization. It's time for us to take a break, but we'll come back and we'll discuss more about that organization.
Great.
So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Every book is an adventure waiting to come to life. Visit new worlds. Encounter new friends. And discover the power of reading. Go to read.gov to read A Princess of Mars, the first novel to feature John Carter. A new world awaits. Read.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year? 1 in 195 million. The odds of the child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism.
Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Today's Saturday. Salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, throw a ball Thursday. Water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday. Let's move Monday, swap us next Sunday.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
Welcome back to Career Choices. In today's program, we've invited Ms. Allison Schafer to discuss the career of a human resources specialist. Welcome back, Allison.
Thank you.
So we were going to discuss now, you work for a nonprofit organization. Exactly what type of nonprofit is it?
Yeah, right now the organization that I work with serves middle school youth. It's an out-of-school time academic enrichment program. In the past, I've worked for a nonprofit consulting organization, and while I was there, I worked with many different types of clients with youth programs, environmental programs, programs for senior citizens, so really the full spectrum.
So with this, I guess, enrichment for children nonprofit organization, what is the typical day like when you first get into the office?
Yeah, I guess to start, it's checking my emails to see what kinds of problems have come up or what questions people have. I like to be able to provide them with solutions that help people do their jobs better. So that's always like where I start. From there, typically have a couple of kind of big picture strategic projects that I'm working on. And it also depends on what time of year it is. So with a program related to school, there are a lot of seasonal pieces going on. If it's summer, there's different hiring components, the school year, that type of thing as well.
So you mentioned people might email you, or is that something that happens quite easily, or because sometimes you would imagine that it might be tough for the worker to approach HR, or it's somewhat of a phrase that people talk about, but what does that really mean?
Yeah. So, a lot of times the emails I get aren't someone saying, I have a very serious grievance to file. It's, I'm having this problem, can you give me some tools to deal with it? So a lot of those come down to communication. I'm having this issue with my employee. Can you give me a new, angle on how to approach it? Or, I want to get some professional development. Can you recommend some trainings? Or I'm having some issues with my health insurance. What paperwork do I need to fill out to take care of that? So just a lot of stuff on the day-to-day basis.
How does HR differ from the payroll component?
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, and that will look differently depending on the size of your organization and the size of your finance team. A lot of times, if there is no formal human resources team, the finance team will take on that role, at least in part. So oftentimes they work very closely together. HR will onboard the employees, but then we need to make sure they're set up in payroll, that everything's correct, that we have all the right documentation, that it's all in their file. So it's a very close relationship.
Okay. And what is in a week? How many hours are you working? What's the range?
Yeah, probably 40 to 50 on any given week at most of the jobs that I've been at. There's a lot of questions to answer, and there's always more to do. So that's very exciting. No day is the same, and I really enjoy that.
So when you say you really enjoy it, and what's the more satisfying parts or most satisfying parts of your job?
Yeah, I love when someone comes to me with something that's making it difficult for them to do their job, and I can solve that for them. And they can walk away knowing that they can, work better with kids, work better with their team, or just have some stress removed from their work life. I think most people's jobs are stressful enough. The HR pieces don't have to add to that stress, right? Like not having a great relationship with your manager, that shouldn't be something that we have to worry about. Or having to worry about the paperwork for your benefits shouldn't be something that you have to worry about each day.
So what is the relationship like between the HR person and management? Is it like an independent side by side, or what is the interaction?
Yeah, definitely working very collaboratively with management. Oftentimes helping to provide maybe a different perspective if we're talking about policy changes or talking about scheduling changes, thinking about like, okay, what will our employees' response be? What emails am I likely to receive? And how are we going to respond to those? So helping to provide a little bit of that angle. And then also from the compliance side, making sure that we're, aware of any relevant local laws or federal laws that might affect some of our decisions.
Okay. Well, what are some of the then issues or parts that you may not enjoy about your position as an HR specialist?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of paperwork for sure. That's not my favorite thing. But I think we're lucky to be right now in a time where technology is just constantly helping us do those things more efficiently. So I really enjoy coming into a situation, seeing that we're spending a lot of time on paperwork and trying to use technology to, cut that by 75% or more. So I definitely enjoy kind of flipping that piece. I think it's definitely challenging. A lot of times when people approach me, they are very, stressed out or emotional or angry. And sometimes that can be a lot of emotions coming at you at once. But I think because it's a little bit different than, oftentimes at work people have their coworkers approaching them with these issues too. It's a little bit more easy for me to process it. I'm not necessarily sitting by them day by day. I'm not the one who's also angry at their boss. I'm a little bit more removed, so I can kind of help break it down a little bit. I think what's been frustrating to me in certain settings with certain clients that I've worked with in the past is when I can't solve a problem. So, when I see a manager who's I know is challenging to work with, and maybe there's they're just not open to coaching, or there's just not really a culture of change. So that's frustrating to me because I always want to be able to solve people's problems or help them solve the problems themselves.
That's good. And it seems like then technology is a big, of course, growing component to your field. I'm curious about elements like LinkedIn. How does that play into your job?
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely key right now. We promote a lot of our jobs on LinkedIn. People tend to find me on LinkedIn when they want to apply for jobs. They'll message me, ask if it's still open. It's very interesting to see. It's a different way to communicate with the HR person, whereas, leaving phone messages or emails really isn't something I would typically respond to for applicants. on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, it's just a kind of a different ball game. I'll be able to say, yes, the job is still open. Like,
Nice.
please, I'd encourage you to apply and that type of thing.
Okay. And you mentioned some of the challenges. Some people might come to you. It's a little bit emotional and sensitive. Okay, so how do you, I guess, balance your job with I guess, where you'd like to go next in your career?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, I've been able to work with a lot of different organizations when they're at transition points or when they're growing, going through a major scale up. So I enjoy being able to give organizations strong infrastructure, teach them a lot, give them, a solid foundation to work off of. So that's really where I do very well. And when things are stable and great, and everyone's using good management language, then I tend to look for an opportunity to go somewhere else where things are a little more complicated.
Okay. And what about the term talent acquisition? Is that also HR, or what is that?
Yeah, so talent acquisition definitely, plays into all the entire recruitment and hiring picture. And you really can't talk about anything in HR without talking about talent and hiring, because that's where it all starts. If you don't have the right people in the jobs, you can't even talk about, strong performance management, strong training, employee relations. So you have to start with the right talent.
Okay. So any memorable project or anything that strikes you as a story that you'd like to share with us as you're doing your day-to-day HR job?
Oh, that's a challenging one. I can't think of a specific story off the top of my head, but I would say with my clients when I was working at the consulting company, it was really enjoyable to spend time in the office, helping them with performance management and coaching their executives and helping with some of the administrative pieces on the HR side. And then, for example, this one client had a youth theater program, and so I would go to the shows and see that all of their staff had coached all of these youth into putting on this fantastic production, this musical or a Disney production or something like that. And I really enjoyed, I had a lot of nieces and nephews, and so they always welcomed me to bring my nieces and nephews to the show. So it was great to be able to say, like, I was a part in having the show be put on, even though I can't sing, I can't dance, teaching's not my strong point, but I still had a role in helping this be as strong as it was.
So, okay, so that's like something personable and perhaps and in this day and age when work kind of is seamlessly infused into our everyday lives, I would imagine being an HR specialist entails helping your workforce feel, buoyant or just happy in some key pointers so that, yes, stress isn't the thing that overwhelms you.
Yes, for sure.
Great. So anything else you'd like to give as a piece of advice or two for those who may want to consider this field? Some tests or certifications or what types of courses they should be taking?
Yeah, I would say look for an introductory class in your area or online. It's a great place to start. It will cover all the different types of HR that are out there, all the different components. And then I would say just read everything you can find. HR is a constantly evolving field. Different methods are always trending, so it's not like you have to know everything there ever was, but if you know what's popular and what's working now, you can kind of start from there and grow with the field. So, find some good bloggers, find some good newsletters, and really just try to stay up to date with what's going on in your area.
And you said you've done consulting and nonprofit. What's the major difference in terms of, is there a difference in culture or what does it feel like?
Yeah, and actually when I was consulting, I was consulting with nonprofits. So I've worked exclusively in the nonprofit world. It's just a matter of whether I'm, at one organization full time or kind of popping in and out of many different organizations. So both are interesting. When you're consulting, it is a little bit easier to keep your kind of outsider perspective and use that to be able to kind of keep tempers calm and point out interesting perspectives and help people grow from there. So I really enjoy that. It was also great to be able to work with many different organizations at once, and feel like I was helping youth, helping the environment, helping senior citizens all at once, veterans all at once. So I really enjoyed that. At the same time, when you're working directly for one organization, you get to go much deeper, involved, get to know really everyone in the company, and just become like a really true member of the team. So that's very enjoyable also.
Great. So thank you so much, Allison, for
you.
your insightful comments about being an HR specialist. But now it's time for us to wrap up. And it concludes today's program. Thanks to our guest, Ms. Allison Schafer, and thank you for joining us. If you have any feedback or comments, or if you would like to share your experience, please email us at qip.career.choices@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time on Career Choices.